I think that this debate was one of the most obvious attempts by a media outlet, in this case ABC News, to essentially freeze out one of the most popular politicians in America, to freeze out, according to the polls, the number two polling candidate in Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders was literally not asked a question during the climate change discussion, even though his plan is the most bold plan, $16 trillion. He was not asked a question about that climate change, Bernie Sanders, I don't have the total. We don't have the total yet about how much how much time was dedicated to each candidate. But based on, I'll show you this tweet. I guess somebody was monitoring this. Take a look at this. This was during the debate. Bernie Sanders, even though he is number two, Bernie Sanders was towards the bottom in terms of minutes allotted to a candidate. There you have Joe Biden. This isn't the final count. This is the count during the debate. Here you have Biden getting the most time, followed by Cory Booker, who is literally polling in, I think, 2 or 3% in most polls. Warren, 8 minutes. Klobuchar, again, polling extremely low, more time than Bernie. Harris, polling low, more time than Bernie. Buttigieg, polling low, more time than Sanders. O'Rourke, polling low, more time than O'Rourke. Castro, polling low, more time than Bernie. Yang, polling higher than O'Rourke, and in some polls, polling higher than Castro and Klobuchar, 4 minutes. So right out of the gate, it was stacked against Bernie. And it is totally insane that on climate change, not a question to Bernie Sanders. Again, the boldest plan on climate change, not a question. ABC moderators allowed Joe Biden to stand there and say, non-violent criminals should not be in jail. I couldn't believe it when I heard this. He literally said, non-violent criminals should not be in jail. We need to get them out. The moderators didn't push back. Frankly, Bernie Sanders should have pushed back. Anyone on stage should have pushed back. Joe Biden pushed through the crime bill, which ushered in the era of other than slavery, of the largest mass incarceration in American history of black men for mostly non-violent crimes. And Joe Biden was allowed to say that with a straight face. That was a failed opportunity by Bernie Sanders. In fairness, I'm not making excuses for him, but in fairness, if I have to guess, judging by how his voice sounded, it did not sound like Bernie Sanders was fully in tip-top shape. It sounds like he had a case of losing his voice. I don't know if it's anything more than that. My girlfriend and I were texting, said it could be laryngitis. I don't know. I haven't spoken with his campaign, but it was clear to me he was not in his peak Bernie form by how raspy his voice was. But still, Bernie Sanders missed several opportunities to go after Joe Biden. Like the first debate, it took Bernie Sanders, and some of you are not going to like it, but I'm just keeping it real. It took Bernie Sanders way too long to go after Joe Biden. And like the first debate, when Bernie Sanders, in choosing not to go after Joe Biden until very late, he allowed other candidates to shine. In the first debate, because Bernie Sanders was not aggressive, he allowed Kamala Harris to shine. In this debate, because he didn't say anything about Joe Biden until very late, at first he said something about Joe Biden and him disagreeing on trade, and that Biden pushed through NAFTA, which I'm glad he said it, but it wasn't the most aggressive thing he could have said. He didn't know. He should have mentioned that Joe Biden is also trying to push through TPP when he was vice president, and he was trying to get Hillary Clinton's campaign to be for TPP. He also, frankly, should have mentioned that Joe Biden is doing fundraisers with union-busting companies like Comcast. So I think Bernie Sanders, frankly, missed opportunities. Some of you don't like it that I'm criticizing him, but I'm not gonna just stand here with pom-poms and be a fanboy. I have to be honest. I think he could have been more aggressive against Joe Biden. I think Bernie's strongest moment was on the Iraq War, where he did go after Biden, saying, I didn't believe what what Bush and Cheney were saying. I think also one of Bernie's strongest moments when he said, "I was the only one on this stage who voted no against a massive, massive military budget." So I think he did have some strong moments, but I think in other parts of the debate he disappeared. He totally disappeared in other parts of the debate. I also think, frankly, I was surprised. I thought I think Elizabeth Warren is very, very lucky. I thought Elizabeth Warren, because she's been rising, would have been attacked more. Nobody laid a glove on Elizabeth Warren. She was allowed to say things that, frankly, were contradictory. She was talking about we need to get out of Afghanistan and stop endless war. I mean, nobody brought up that she voted for this $715 billion defense budget. She was speaking her talking points about corruption. Nobody brought up that she took money from big dollar donors and had lavish fundraisers in her 2018 Senate reelection campaign, and then transferred that money over to her presidential campaign, used that money, and then claimed she's not taking money from big donors. Nobody brought up the fact that she's openly said, well, in the primary, corruption, bad. I'm not taking money from big donors. In the general, yeah, I'll take their money. So I think I was expecting either Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg or Cory Booker or somebody to go after Warren because she's taking support away from them. Nobody went after her, so I think she's very lucky. I don't think she had a standout night. I'm not watching the reaction on corporate media, so I'm sure the corporate media is going to say, "Oh, Elizabeth Warren," because they've been trying to prop her up for quite a while. I think that thing that Yang did in the beginning with I'm giving UBI out to some of people who donate. I think in principle what he's trying to do is interesting, but I think it came off very, very like a gimmick. Almost like, you remember when Oprah had her show and was like, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. I think that's how it came out. So I don't think Yang had like a terrible night, but I don't think he had a great night. I'll also say, let's not forget, Tulsi Gabbard should have been on that debate stage. Tulsi Gabbard is polling better in several polls, including in New Hampshire, than Klobuchar, than Beto, than in some polls, Julian Castro, and the DNC cherry-picked the polls they wanted and tossed out the polls they didn't to screw her out of being on the debate stage. And the reason they did that is because, in my view, if you watch Game of Thrones, Tulsi Gabbard is kind of like the Arya Stark of politics. She's got a kill list. First she killed, well, not literally, but figuratively killed Kamala Harris campaign by totally knocking the snot out of her in the last debate, and they didn't want Tulsi Gabbard anywhere near that debate stage because they didn't want her going after Warren, because Tulsi Gabbard could have done damage to Warren if on that debate stage. Same thing with Biden, same thing with Buttigieg. They didn't want it, and that's why they blocked her from being on there. So I think Castro had a good night. Frankly, I think Warren had an okay night. Nothing stands out for me on Warren. Bernie to me had a lot of failed opportunities. I'm just going to be honest with you. I will, like I said, I think that he wasn't feeling great with his voice and other things. It seems like he was kind of laboring through it. But you can't keep waiting and allowing other people to go after Biden. I happen to know, because I have sources in his campaign, they have been urging him to go after Joe Biden. So the fact that he's not is not like, it's not what his campaign is urging him to do. It's not what his campaign is advising him. He is going against his campaign. And when he goes after Biden, you could kind of tell that it's kind of like halfway going against him. When he pointed out, Joe and I had a difference of opinion, blah, 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 he's always trying to do it diplomatically. Well, some of you might say, that's just who Bernie is, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but you can't go to a knife fight continually holding a spoon. And I say this as a Bernie supporter, personally. So you have to point out very strongly, Mr. Biden, you call yourself Union Man Joe. You voted for NAFTA. You want to push TPP through. You're fundraising from union busters. This is, you could say whatever you want, but your record doesn't match that. I think Bernie, frankly, should have brought up the fact that he's currently fundraising with pretty much anyone, any rich person in America, Joe Biden is having a fundraiser with. Wall Street bankers, oil executives, real estate executives, big pharma executives, Silicon Valley executives, the who's who of the oligarchy Joe Biden is bending over for. That's just the truth. So I don't think Bernie had a disastrous night, but I don't think he had a night that is going to move the needle for him the way most of you want it. I think that Kamala Harris didn't do so hot herself. I think Pete Buttigieg didn't do so hot. I don't think Cory Booker had any impressive moments. Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you could sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.